don't just want the news, they want the truth. What others hide, I bring to you with evidence. Politics, corruption, human rights. No filters, no fear, just facts. I don't stop until the system shakes. Hello and welcome to Trending Daily. This is Makhdoom Shahabuddin. For years, India projected itself as the dominant military and economic power in South Asia. New Delhi repeatedly presented Pakistan as a country that could be pressured through military strength, economic leverage, and diplomatic isolation. But the strategic picture is changing, and the Mecca Joint Defence Agreement between Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Türkiye has created a problem India cannot easily ignore. Because that is not simply about three countries signing another diplomatic document. It is about three different forms of strategic power coming together. Pakistan brings nuclear deterrence, a large military and decades of battlefield experience. Türkiye brings an increasingly advanced defense industry, drones, aerospace capabilities, and modern military technology. Saudi Arabia brings enormous financial resources, energy, influence, and immense political weight across the Muslim world. And behind Pakistan remains its powerful strategic relationship with China. This creates a situation that India would have preferred to avoid. For years, New Delhi benefited from the assumption that Pakistan could be dealt with primarily through a bilateral military equation. But that equation is becoming more complicated. India may still have greater economic weight. India may still have a larger overall defense budget. India may still possess major military capabilities, but strategic power is not determined by size alone. It is determined by options, and Pakistan is gaining options. That is what should concern New Delhi. Operation Sindoor did not end the problem. India's military action during Operation Sindoor was intended to demonstrate that Pakistan could no longer rely on old assumptions about Indian restraint. New Delhi wanted to establish new deterrence equation. The message was clear. Any major provocation would carry military consequences. But there is an uncomfortable question for India. What happens if Pakistan learns from that confrontation? What happens if Pakistan decides that repeating the same strategy would be foolish? What happens if Islamabad chooses technology, ambiguity, and partnerships instead of relying on the methods of the past? This is where India's confidence could face its biggest test. A stronger adversary does not necessarily respond to pressure by surrendering. Sometimes it adapts, and Pakistan has every incentive to adapt. Pakistan is changing the battlefield. The old image of Pakistan as a country relying primarily on conventional forces is becoming outdated. Pakistan is expanding cooperation in drones, aerospace, electronic warfare, artificial intelligence, and advanced defense technologies. Türkiye becomes extremely important here. Türkiye has transformed itself into one of the most important emerging defense producers in the world. Its drone industry has gained international recognition. Its aerospace ambitions are expanding. Its electronic warfare capabilities are developing. Its defense exports are growing. For Pakistan, this creates an opportunity. Islamabad does not need Türkiye to fight India's battles. Pakistan needs access to technology that can make India's military superiority more difficult to exploit. That is a major difference. If Pakistan can improve its surveillance capabilities, drone warfare, counter-drone systems, electronic warfare, and precision strike capabilities, India's traditional advantages become less decisive. And this is where New Delhi faces a serious challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, India's numerical advantage is not enough. India has a much larger population, it has a much larger economy, it has a larger defense budget. But modern warfare has repeatedly demonstrated that numbers alone do not guarantee victory. Technology can change the battlefield, electronic warfare can disrupt superior platforms, drones can create new vulnerabilities, precision weapons can destroy expensive assets, cyber operations can target critical infrastructure, air defense can challenge conventional assumptions about air superiority, and intelligence can determine whether military power is actually usable. India cannot simply point to the size of its military and assume Pakistan will remain strategically outmatched. That would be quite dangerous for India. Turkey creates a new problem. For India, Turkey is particularly uncomfortable. Ankara has consistently supported Pakistan on Kashmir. Now that political relationship is being reinforced by defense cooperation, that means India's challenge is no longer limited to diplomatic criticism. Technology can eventually become the more important factor. Imagine greater access to electronic warfare technology. Imagine stronger surveillance capabilities. Imagine improved defense production. Imagine deeper military training and interoperability. None of these developments automatically threatens India, but together they can narrow the technological gap in specific areas. And that is exactly what India cannot afford to ignore. Then comes Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia creates another layer of pressure. India has significant economic relations with Riyadh. Indian workers are present across the Gulf. India relies heavily on energy imports. India has invested enormous diplomatic effort in building relationships with Gulf monarchies. But Pakistan has now strengthened its formal security relationship with Saudi Arabia. This creates a strategic complication for India. Saudi Arabia does not need to become anti-India. That is not necessary. The very existence of a close Pakistan-Saudi security relationship gives Islamabad greater strategic confidence. Pakistan can enter a confrontation knowing that it is not diplomatically isolated. And that matters because isolation has historically been one of the factors India could hope would constrain Pakistan. The Mecca Pact makes that calculation more difficult. Pakistan is not alone. This is perhaps India's biggest concern. Pakistan is no longer operating within a simple Pakistan-India equation now. Pakistan has Saudi Arabia, Pakistan has Türkiye, Pakistan has China, Pakistan has its nuclear deterrent, and Pakistan has decades of military experience. Each relationship serves a different purpose. China provides advanced military cooperation and defense equipment. Turkey provides growing defense technology. Saudi Arabia provides economic and political weight. Pakistan provides the military geography and nuclear deterrent. This does not create a single superpower alliance, but it creates strategic depth. And strategic depth is exactly what can make an adversary more confident. India cannot dominate every front. New Delhi often projects itself as the rising power of the region, and India's economic growth is undeniable. But the larger India becomes, the more strategic commitments it carries. India must watch Pakistan. It must watch China. It must protect the Indian Ocean. It must maintain relationships with the Gulf. It must manage relations with Russia. It must deepen ties with the United States. It must monitor developments across the Middle East. And it must protect an enormous coastline and vast territory. Pakistan does not have to match India everywhere. It only needs to create pressure in areas where India's advantages are less overwhelming. That is the existence of asymmetric strategy. You do not fight the stronger opponent where the stronger opponent is strongest. You force the stronger opponent to defend multiple vulnerabilities. The psychological advantage. The biggest impact of the Mecca Pact may not be military. It may be psychological. For years, India wanted Pakistan to believe that military escalation would be too costly. But now, Pakistan can point to a wider strategic environment. It can point to Türkiye, it can point to Saudi Arabia, it can point to China, and it can point to its nuclear deterrent. That does not make Pakistan invincible, but it can make Pakistan more confident. And confidence changes calculations. This is exactly why India cannot dismiss the agreement. If the traditional battlefield becomes too dangerous, the methods of competition can change. Cyber warfare, electronic warfare, unmanned systems, maritime pressure, information operations, economic disruption, covert competition. The battlefield can become wider without becoming a conventional war. And India's enormous size can actually create vulnerabilities. The larger the infrastructure network, the greater the number of systems that need protection. The larger the economy, the more critical infrastructure exists. The more technologically connected the country becomes, the more cyber protection becomes essential. India's strength can therefore also create new responsibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mecca Joint Defence Agreement does not create an Islamic NATO overnight. It does not guarantee that Saudi Arabia and Turkey will enter every conflict alongside Pakistan. It does not eliminate India's advantages, but it changes the strategic environment. Pakistan now has a stronger network. Türkiye brings technology, Saudi Arabia brings economic and political weight, China remains a major defense partner, Pakistan retains nuclear deterrence, and together, these relationships can produce something India cannot easily counter with military numbers alone: strategic uncertainty. That is the real challenge for New Delhi. India may still be larger, India may still be wealthier, India may still possess greater conventional military resources, but Pakistan is becoming harder to isolate. And a Pakistan that is harder to isolate is a Pakistan that is harder to pressure. That is why Mecca Pact matters. Not because India has suddenly become powerless, but because the old assumption of overwhelming Indian strategic freedom is becoming harder to sustain. The message from Islamabad is simple. Pakistan will not fight tomorrow's strategic battle using yesterday's methods. It will use partnerships, it will use technology, it will use deterrence, it will use diplomacy, and it will use the strategic weight of the Muslim world. For India, that means one thing. The era of assuming that Pakistan can simply be cornered is becoming increasingly difficult. India is still powerful, but Pakistan's strategic options are expanding. And when the options of one side expand, the freedom of the other side inevitably becomes narrower. That is the real significance of the Mecca Pact. And that is precisely why New Delhi is watching with caution. This was Trending Daily. I'm Makhdoom Shahabuddin. See you in the next video.